Two big things happened on June the 27th, which was just over a week ago. First, I burnt my feet whilst on the beach because I'm not able to put on sun cream in the correct manner. And probably more importantly, Football Manager released a development update for FM25, the first one of the new game, and the first screenshots with the new Unity engine were released. We've got a recap. Well, basically it's just the same thing they posted, but our big boss Footy Gamer has put it on the Sort It Out SI website. You can comment on this thread as well. I'm going to go through the key things that have been announced in this development vlog. First off, they basically tout the fact that they've got the Premier League license, something they've been chasing for 20 years, which, if you use the real name fix and the logos and the face packs and everything, will not really massively impact your game, but it's nice to have that in there and see how they manage to make it more immersive, like they did with the Champions League and other licenses that they've got on past Football Managers. They also announced that they've got a new logo, which we've seen, and it's kind of in the same sort of... It's not that different, really. There's a new Sports Interactive logo as well. It's just basically a new modern version of the logos that have been basically what we've had in the past. There's news that Football Manager 24 has reached 10 million players, and that's not just on PC. That's a lot of players on console and touch and mobile, so there's going to be more news on those versions of the game in the future, and probably, if you look at the screenshots, it's going to be much more similar between the different versions of the game, utilising the power of the new Unity engine. Right then, the new era, the next era for Football Manager 25, the first one of the new development cycle using the new engine. Basically, this is the starting point for the next 20 years, is what they're saying in this blog. We already know that women's football is coming to Football Manager 2025, and there's loads of licenses they're securing, and I'm confident of getting more, which is good. They've not announced what leagues are going to be playable, what leagues are going to be licensed, or anything like that, but more details will be revealed in the coming months. And they do confirm, which I think we might have already known or been hinted at in the past, that the men's game and the women's game will all be one game, one ecosystem. It's not like you just say, I'm playing in the men's world, so then you don't see anything from the women's football, or vice versa. It will all be interlinked, and how they interlink and keep things seamless so we don't have strange movements between the men's game, like managers going from the top of the men's game to the bottom of the women's game, and how reputation works and interlinks between them, I'm sure they will cover in the future, but there's one key thing to look out for. But it does mean that you can seamlessly move between managing men's and women's teams and move zigzag your way up the ladder. I don't know what that is, but that's a zigzag up the ladder to get to the very top of either football world. Right, so then they go from what's coming that we've already kind of knew about to their approach to development, and this is kind of refreshing. Basically, they've started from a fresh place and gone, would we do it the same way if we had to do it again? And apply that principle to every feature, and would we have done it at all, or do we have the time to actually do it properly? If not, get rid of it. And they do go into detail as to what they've got rid of and what wasn't working in the past that they are going to can basically for FM25 and what might come back in the future. So they've kind of gone through a whole, basically an internal audit of their processing and the quality assurance and getting rid of things that don't work or they would have done differently and redone them with this essential reset of the whole franchise. So what's changing in FM25? And they first go through what is being gotten rid of. So touchline shouts. You can no longer shout demand more or encourage or praise, or, well, you don't do any of the other things because that's just dangerous. But they have never really worked properly. They've never been seamlessly. They've never been live. When you press the shout button, you have to wait for the ball to go out of play before the shout actually happens. And sometimes you can demand more, your team then score, and then they get pissed off with you because you're demanding more and they've just scored a goal. So touchline shouts have never been perfect. They're admitting that they haven't worked properly for a long time, or forever basically, so they're getting rid of them. They do want to bring them back, but only if they can do them properly within the new engine, which is great to see that they're not just keeping things in there for the sake of keeping it in. The next thing they've got rid of is the social media screen, because, I mean, who uses that? It's just there. And the data chalkboard, which I think is something you probably would have used in the past once or twice during a save, but a lot of the use of it has been replaced by the data hub, which is what they talk about in here. The usage has dropped from 10% to 1% since the data hub has been introduced. So it's kind of just there, but you use the data from it in a different place. So why is it there? Another thing they're getting rid of that is just basically to optimize the experience. And if you're getting rid of things that no one's using, no one's going to notice. Although I'm sure people will complain about it anyway. The next thing they're getting rid of is Create a Club. So I've never used Create a Club in a game, and it's saying that only 5% of people have actually done that. If I want to create a club, I will follow our guide on creating a club, which we did a video on in FM23. We're going to do a video on very, very soon here on the channel for FM24. Basically, use the pre-game editor to do things. I imagine if the pre-game editor is still there, which hopefully it is, you'll be able to follow the same sort of process anyway for FM25. So this, if you are a fan of creating your own club, the removal of this feature hopefully won't hinder you too much. We'll just have another guide out for FM25 on how to do it properly. The next thing they get rid of it is versus mode. So I've had a little bit of playing with versus mode, not so much on FM24, but on FM23. They're getting rid of that. It's probably going to be superseded by something else or come back in a different form in the future, but they're not happy with how it's used, how it is and how it's used, so they're just getting rid of it, which makes sense. Challenge mode, which is something on console touch and the mobile series, is getting completely revamped basically for a future game. It's not something that's on the main game, and I don't think it's been on the main game for a long time. I think when they introduced, I don't know if it was FM14 or something daft like that, they had something like it, but I think it's definitely something that's been on the more mobile or console versions of the game. But that's coming back in the future if you are a fan of that mode, the challenge mode. Fancy Draft is something that's not going to be playable on day one, but will return alongside the main data update. Now again, this is something I don't really use. I'm not much of an online player, like against other players. So this is not one for me, but they are making the decision to remove it from day one and bring it back in the future. And there's also an announcement about FIFA E, the esports division of FIFA, to do an invitational World Cup of Football Manager using FM24, which will take place at the end of the summer. More detail about that, and there's an announcement about it as well linked. If that is something you're interested in, go for it and have a look at what that actually entails. Not for me personally, so I'm not going to dwell on Fantasy Draft too much. Right, now we get into the meat of things, a new UI for a new era. So it's basically a major new experience on day one of Football Manager 25. So a lot of people for the last 10 years have complained that Football Manager is basically just a reskin. So hopefully this will be a completely different experience. And from the screenshots, we're going to go into it in a minute, I think they've really tried to optimize how the game looks and how it will translate across the different versions of the game, so it can all be a bit more consistent. So if you're playing on your mobile and then playing on your laptop, it should, but my interpretation at least, should be very similar feel and not feel like two completely separate games. But they're basically using a design that is platform agnostic, so it doesn't matter what platform you're on, it will basically enable ease of play, whether you're using a mouse and keyboard like every sane person, or a controller, or if you're on your mobile. So to do that, they've worked closely with Unity, and they've gone into detail on tiles and cards, which sound very strange if you're an old man like me. I don't know what a tile or a card is. Well, I do, but knowing the concept of this, because, you know, what are they? So basically a tile is a panel of information, and you can see here on this screenshot, it basically says, depending on where it is in the screen and how big it is, it will show slightly different cuts of the same data. So this is looking at the different states of the same data. So this is looking at a player's last 5 matches, and you can see it here in more detail on the top left, or on the bottom even more detail, all the way down to just a single last 5 matches average rating in the top corner there. So depending on how big the screen is, or how big the tile is within the screen, you will get a different level of information, a different level of detail about the information. But once you click on it, a card will pop up with much more detailed information here, and it will show all of the detail in the game specifically. So this guy has scored a goal here and 2 assists and been subbed, and then got 2 goals, etc, etc. You can see more detail in each matches. The playing time is on the card, as well as are the season stats as well. It's one thing to note that this is taken, all the screenshots are taken from a design file for FM25 and not a game build. Whether that is concerning or not, I'm not sure. You'd hope they've got a version of the game built now where they can just be testing it and ironing out bugs. But maybe the way they wanted to show the screenshots using the design files rather than the in-game version, maybe it's just an aesthetic way of showing it. Maybe the way it's in the game at the moment isn't as pleasing as how they're going through it iteratively. I don't know. Maybe you can get concerned about it that it's not fully a game build ready yet. I'm on the fence as whether it's an issue or not, but it's there for you to digest yourself. Basically, the number of screens in-game are going to be reduced by using this tile and card system anyway, making navigation easier without really compromising on the detail. That's the aim, at least. And then there's a joke there about walls of text on this 3,000-word article. And then the next thing, they are getting rid of the inbox and introducing the portal. Now, looking at this screenshot, it looks like it's kind of a bit of a reskin of the inbox, more melding in some of the social media and news section, which is on a separate page before, and basically reframing things and getting rid of emails and bringing in text messages or WhatsApp because we're cool like the kids. The portal basically has an agenda on the left, which is kind of like your must-respond things by the look of the things that are in there. So attending press conferences, confirming your match day squad, and then going to the match. It's kind of a stuff you must do. And then messages over here, like this one here, is from the owner, messaging about the stability of your current role and stuff you get in your inbox, basically. You have your news section down here, which covers news, and fixtures, which I'm guessing is like the next fixture list of your competition that you're in. And the calendar section looks nice and includes all of your training, matches, various contracts that are coming up as well being blogged on there. So I'm guessing you can click into those and go into more detail on the specific things within the calendar. And then across the top, rather than down the left, I assume that's what this is replacing, you can go to your portal, your squad, recruitment, on the pitch, which I'm sure will cover several things, which were covered on different pages before, and then club and your manager profile, I assume that one is. Obviously, we don't get any screenshots of these individual pages, so we've got to kind of leave it to our imagination as to what is covered by each of them. But my interpretation of that is all the things that are down the left-hand side on Football Manager 24 are now going to be in those sections along the top, and you basically click into them, and I'm guessing you can customize the views that come with it and the tiles and the cards that, I'm using the terminology there again, so you can just customize the tiles that fit onto each page, maybe even customize the tiles that fit onto the portal as well, but we'll see. That'll be something that we will basically be told more about in coming development blogs. And then the next thing they show, the final thing they show, is the match day screen, which is kind of what you see between match highlights currently. It's kind of broken down a little bit better and a little bit more user-friendly, a little bit more modern. The 2D pitches there, which if you're running the game at really high speed between highlights, not sure how crazy that's going to look, but it's in there. You get 2D pitch at all times. You've got your formation, and there's toggles or buttons here to swipe through, I'm guessing, or click through to get different views. So I'm guessing there's different things behind this tile. Is that the right one, or is it a card? Not sure. So you've got your formation. I mentioned there's player stats and other things. Behind there, you've got the buttons here to go to your tactics and subs, your instructions, balanced, basically your team mentality as well, and they're showing off the Premier League logo there, and it looks like a Premier League scorecard at the top of the page. Match stats and events are in the middle. Other matches going on here. I'm hoping that toggles there to go to a league table or something like that. The dugout here, I'm guessing, is assistance advice, basically, for things you could do, which pop up generally in-game anyway. And then you've got a view of your squad, and I'm guessing here this is a subs toggle, so you can see who's on your bench as well. And maybe, I'm hoping, some sort of drag and drop to make substitutions as well, so it's nice and intuitive and straightforward on how to do things. But we'll know more when we get some more screenshots and live footage of the game in the coming weeks and months, probably more like months. An announcement for the release date will be coming soon as well. They do go into more detail as to what's to come in the future. There's going to be some FMFC members with initial UI and UX testing and whatnot going on for a couple of months going into early October, and then they will announce the release date at the beginning of September. Pre-orders opening at the same time, and then basically unveiling more gameplay elements and more screenshots and everything that's being revealed through the various development blogs and on Twitter, or whatever Twitter's called these days. More info on FM25 coming soon. More info on the FIFA E World Cup of Football Manager and the return of an official Football Manager podcast. They're all plugged at the bottom from my miles. Basically, that is what the development blog is covering. My take on it is there's not enough detail in these screenshots and what's been said to really get hyped up or get annoyed about the development process that's going on. Does it look pretty? Yes. Does it look a little bit more like a mobile game or a little bit more of a modern, less of a spreadsheet manager game? Yes. Is that a bad thing? Not necessarily. It depends on how the rest of the screens work and how the flow of the game works once you've actually got your hands on the game. So, tentatively impressed by what we've seen, yes. A little bit nervous that it says that it's from design files and not the game build. But things are moving. Football Manager being nice and open and transparent about what's happening in their development cycle. I imagine this is the first of many blogs that they are going to release over the coming months. So we're going to get more and more information coming very soon. And of course, we'll cover that here on the Sort It Out SI channel. As I said, there will be a video coming soon on a creator club and how you do that in the pre-game editor. Obviously, we did one for FM23. There's not been many changes for FM24, but we're going to refresh that and go through the process again on FM24 specifically to give you all of the latest information. We'll also have a video on our data update, which you can download here at the top of the page on the Sort It Out SI website, and more great content coming your way. If you're excited for FM25, let us know in the comments. Let me know what you're most looking forward to, or at least looking forward to if that is the case, and whether you are excited for FM25 and the new era of Football Manager. Stay tuned for more. I've been Anders, and I'll catch you on the next one.